Hey, what's happening guys? Welcome to this channel. To those who are new here, I've been doing videos where I talk about movies, productions, characters, plot, and what I like about them. And I love talk about films. And I thought it would make sense if I did Star Wars films, starting with the prequel trilogy. So grab yourselves Dweezil and Pally, or grab some death sticks if you don't want to rethink your life. Let's begin with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The story of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi trying to protect Queen Padme Amidala of Naboo in hopes of securing a peaceful end to an interplanetary trade dispute. Anakin Skywalker tags along. So while George Lucas writes the original Star Wars movie, he decided the story was too extended to be covered in one film, so introduced a wider story arc that could be told in sequels if it became successful. Lucas negotiated a contract that allowed him to make 2 sequels, and over time created elaborate backstory to aid his writing process. He considered directions in which to take the story during the writing of The Empire Strikes Back. Darth Vader, revealed to be Luke Skywalker's father, Anakin Skywalker, who was a powerful Jedi Knight and a traitor to the Jedi Order. Lucas decided with his backstory in place the movies would work best as a trilogy. In Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader sacrifices himself for his son Luke. Through the entire 1980s, George Lucas has no desire to return to Star Wars and cancelled his sequel trilogy by the time Return of the Jedi came out. However, he had developed most of the backstory. The idea of prequels still fascinates him. During the early 1990s, Star Wars saw a resurgence in popularity in the wake of Dark Horse's comic line and Timothy Zahn's trilogy of novels. George Lucas saw that there was a still large audience for his idea of a prequel trilogy, and with the development of special effects generated with CGI, he considered returning to his saga and directing the film. There was announcement in Variety and other sources that he would be making the prequels in 1993. So he began trace the story. Anakin Skywalker, instead of Obi-Wan Kenobi, would be the protagonist, and the series would be a tragedy exploring Darth Vader's origins, having the story of Anakin similar to Luke's, where he grew up in Tatooine. George Lucas also began to change the prequel's timeline relative to the original series. Instead of filling in the tangential history, they would form the beginning of a long story that started with Anakin's childhood and his fate. This was the final step towards turning the franchise into a saga. On 1st of November 1994, George Lucas started writing the prequel trilogy. The script was adapted from Luke's 15-page outline that was written in 1976, which he designed to help him keep track of the characters, backstories and events that occurred before the original trilogy. Anakin was first written as a 12-year-old, but Lucas changed it to 9-year-old because he felt that lower age would be better fit to the plot. Point of Anakin being affected by his mother's separation from him. Later on, Anakin's younger age led Lucas to rewrite his participation in the movie's major scenes, so the title was originally to be called The Beginning, but then changed to The Phantom Menace, to reference Palpatine hiding his true identity as an evil Sith Lord behind the facade of a well-intentioned public servant, which I like the idea of. Lucas thought about a much grander, more epic scale, and said which is what he wanted Star Wars to be when the larger budget and possibilities opened up by the use of digital effects. As the movie ends with the ongoing plots leading one thing to another, the central story is Palpatine's intent to become Chancellor, which leads to the Trade Federation's attack on Naboo, the Jedi being sent there, Anakin being met along the way, and the rise of the Sith Lords. As with the original trilogy, Lucas intended The Phantom Menace to illustrate several themes throughout the narrative. Duality is a frequent theme. Amidala is a queen who possesses as a handmaiden. Palpatine plays on both sides of the war. Among others, balance is frequently suggested. Anakin is supposedly the one chosen to bring balance to the Force. Lucas said Anakin needed to have a mother, Obi-Wan needed a master, Darth Sidious needed an apprentice, as without interaction and dialogue, you wouldn't have the drama. On November 2015, Ron Howard said that he, Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg were approached to direct The Phantom Menace, but they suggested to Lucas that he should direct the film. as they found the project too daunting. Lucas's producing partner Rick McCallum was preparing for the film. Before Lucas started writing, McCallum says that his experience with the young Indiana Jones Chronicles led to many of his decisions on The Phantom Menace, such as long-term deals with actors and sound stages, the employment of recent graduates with no film experience, and the creation of sets and landscapes with digital technology. So he started searching for the artists in art, architecture and design schools in April 1994, and in mid-year he began location scouting. Gavin Bouquet, the production designer, Duke Cheyenne, the industrial light and magic art director, impressed McCallum the most and was hired as the design director. On January 1995, art development of the film started. Lucas began the writing process within 3 to 4 months. Duke Cheyenne and his design team started a 2-year process of reviewing thousands of designs for the film, and said that Lucas intended Episode 1 to be stylistically different from the other Star Wars films. It would be richer and more like a period piece, since it was the history leading up to A New Hope. The story takes place on 3 planets, some with great environments such as the human and Gungan cities of Naboo, and 3 buildings in Coruscant. With the exception of the Gungan city, which had an Art Nouveau-inspired visual, these locations would be given distinctive looks with some bases in the real world. The concept drawings of Ralph McQuarrie for the original trilogy served as the basis for Mos Espa, taking inspiration from old Tunisian hotels and buildings, and had touches such as a marketplace to differentiate it from A New Hope. Mos Eisley and Coruscant, in particular, a metropolis design that turned into the basis for the Senate. Bouquet would later create the work of Cheyenne's team and design the interiors, translating the concepts into construction blueprints, with environments and architectural styles that had some basis in reality to give the audience something to key into. Some elements took inspiration from the original trilogy. Lucas described the battle droids as predecessors to the stormtroopers. Cheyenne uses that orientation to base the droids on the Imperial soldiers, only in the same style of stylized and elongated features seen in tribal African art. Teriel Whitlatch, who was in charge of creature design, had a background on zoology and anatomy. Many of the aliens are hybrids combining features of real animals. At times, entire food chains were developed, even though they're briefly in the film.
Here, you'll like these pallies. Here.
Whitlatch also designed detailed skeletons for the major characters and facial muscles on Jar Jar Binks as a reference for ILM's animators. Each creature would reflect its environment. Those on Naboo were more beautiful because the planet is lush and more animal-friendly. Tatooine has rough-looking creatures with weather-beating leathery skin to protect them from a harsh desert element, and Coruscant had bipedal, human-looking aliens. The extensive use of the new technique of digital pre-visualization is made using computers to essentially create 3D animated storyboards. This was done for dozens of scenes in the film, but was the first and primarily used in the pod race sequence. David Dozeret's animatronic supervisor, also in ILM, Alan worked on this sequence for nearly 3 years, and at one point had a 25-minute version of the race, although the film only included a 9-minute version.
Now this is pod racing!
Nick Gillard, the stunts coordinator, was recruited to create a new Jedi fighting style for the prequels. He likens the lightsaber battles to a chess game, with every move being a check due to their short-range weapons, and thought that the Jedi would have had to develop a fighting style that merged every sword fighting style, such as Kenjutsu styles, with other swinging techniques like as tennis swings and street chopping. Gillard wrote a sequence that lasted around 60 seconds and intended to be around 5 or 6 sequences per fight. While training Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor, George Lucas later referred to the Jedi as negotiators rather than high casualty soldiers. The preference of hand-to-hand combat was intended to give a spiritual and intelligible role to the Jedi due to the Nick Gillard thought that the stunt jumps with the actors and stuntmen dangling from wires did not look realistic. Air rams were used to propel them into the air instead. Lucas decided to make elaborate costumes because the film's society was more sophisticated than the one depicted in the original trilogy. Trisha Biggar, the designer, and her team created over 1,000 costumes that were inspired by various cultures. She works closely with Ian McCaig, concept designer, to create a colour palette for the inhabitants of each world. Tatooine with sun-bleached sand colours, Coruscant had greys, browns and blacks, and Naboo had green and gold for humans, while Gungans wore a leathery look like their skin. The Jedi costumes followed the tradition from the original film, especially Obi-Wan's costume from what Alec Guinness wore. George Lucas said he and Biggar would look at the conceptual art to translate all of these designs into cloth and fabric and materials that would actually work and not look silly. Biggar also consulted Giller to ensure that the costumes would accommodate action scenes and consulted the creature department to find which fabrics wouldn't wear too heavily. On the alien skins, a huge wardrobe department was set up at Leavesden Film Studios to create over 250 costumes for the main actors and 5,000 for the background ones. They started filming the movie on 26th of June 1997 and finished on 30th of September 1995, which took place in Leavesden Film Studios in England. Tatooine Desert is shot near Nafta in Tunisia, and Naboo Royal Palace scenes were shot in the Palace of Caserta in Italy. After the filming was finished, the editing took 2 years to do. Paul Martin Smith started the process in England and focused on dialogue-heavy scenes. The film's sound editor Ben Burt was responsible for action sequences under Lucas' supervision. Non-liner editor systems played a large part in translating Lucas' vision. He constantly tweaked and revised and reworked shots and scenes. In March 1999, the final sound mix was added, and the following month, the film was completed after the delivery of the remaining visual effects shots. Those actors from the original trilogy reprised the role. Qui-Gon Jinn is played by Liam Neeson, which I think he's awesome. Qui-Gon Jinn is a Jedi Master who found young Anakin and believed he can bring balance in the Force and that he's the chosen one. He insists that he must be trained. Neeson was casted because Lucas thought Neeson to have great skills and presence, describing him as a master actor who the other actors will look up to, who has got the qualities of strength that the character demands after originally having Obi-Wan as an older man. Ewan McGregor plays the younger version of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who in this movie is a Padawan. Ewan McGregor was casted because he looked like a younger version of Alec Guinness, which I totally agree. I think he nailed it. McGregor had a vocal coach to help his voice sound more like Guinness's. He also studied several of Guinness's performance from the original Star Wars and his early work. Natalie Portman plays Queen Padme Amidala of Naboo, who's hoping to protect her planet from the Trade Federation through the entire movie. She uses her real name and got one of the Queen's handmaidens pretending to be a queen for protection. And I think Portman is great as Padme. In the early script of the original Star Wars, Leia is the daughter of Owen and Beru Loz and seems to be Luke's cousin. Together they visit the grave of his mother, who perished with his father on the planet destroyed by the Death Star. Lucas answered a question in the interview about the development of the characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke and Leia. Their mother was not a factor. The first version talked about a princess and an old general. The second version involved a father, his son and his daughter. The daughter was the heroine of the film. Now the daughter has become Luke, Mark Hamill's character. Then Lucas wrote the script for The Phantom Menace. He envisioned a link between Padme and Princess Leia, the daughter who follows so closely in her footsteps. Over 200 actresses auditioned for the role. The production notes said that the role required a young woman who could be believable as the ruler of that planet, but at the same time be vulnerable and open, so they chose Natalie Portman, especially for her performances in Leon. The professional and beautiful girls which impressed Lucas, and he said he was looking for someone who was young, strong, along the lines of Leia, and Natalie embodied all those traits and more. Portman wasn't familiar with Star Wars before being casted, although her cousins were obsessed with the movies and they're happy that Natalie is part of the franchise. The scenic gown was taken inspiration from traditional Mongolian royal fashion. Young Anakin Skywalker in this movie is played by Jake Lloyd, who's a 9-year-old slave. He's a good pilot and dreams to be a Jedi, which he eventually does, then fall to the dark side and become Darth Vader. And I think he did a good job with his acting and the chemistry with his mum, Shmi Skywalker. You can tell he's really sad to leave his mum. It's pretty heartbreaking. It shows he can act. Rick McCallum, the producer, said that Lloyd is smart, mischievous, and loves anything mechanical just like Anakin. And the fact that Lloyd has been bullied at school because of that role is horrible. They are definitely not Star Wars fan in my mind. Ian McDiarmid plays Sheev Palpatine, a senator of Naboo and secret Sith Lord known as Darth Sidious. I won't go into the creation and casting in this video due to his debut in the original trilogy, so when I eventually do Star Wars the original trilogy, I will get into more of Palpatine's creation and casting. And I think Ian is perfect as Palpatine. What can I say that hasn't been said already? Plus, Palpatine is my favourite Sith Lord. Ian McDiarmid was surprised when Lucas approached him 16 years after Return of the Jedi to return, having assumed that a younger actor would play the role in the prequels. Ahmed Best plays Jar Jar Binks, a clumsy Gungan exiled from his home and taken in by Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Robin Gurlins, the casting director, saw Ahmed Best on a Stomp performance in San Francisco and hired him. He was originally just doing a motion capture, but he requested to voice Jar Jar, and it was accepted. He improvised movements to make Jar Jar look as clumsy and comedic as possible. I think Ahmed Best is a terrific actor. The character Jar Jar Binks is known as a comic relief by the audience, as we all know that the character is hated by the critics and the audience, and some considered him racist caricature. I'm so glad Ahmed Best eventually got to play a Jedi in The Mandalorian. That's really what I've always wanted to see. And even the fans welcomed him, which is awesome. Anthony Daniels plays C-3PO, who's a protocol droid that Anakin built. It was pretty funny when he got called naked.
I beg your pardon, but what do you mean, naked? My parts are showing. My goodness.
As he's just a skeleton figure. Kenny Baker plays R2-D2, an astromech droid from Naboo who survived saving Queen Amidala's ship, while other droids snuffed it. I love R2-D2, he's pretty cool. Apparently Kenny was used for scenes where R2 bends forward and backwards and wobbles from side to side. Robots and a digital model were used in other shots. Darth Maul in this movie is played by Ray Parks, but he's voiced by Peter Serafinowicz. And I think this is a fantastic performance. The character is outstanding. The production designer Gavin Bouquet got really frustrated with the drawing, so concept artist Ian McCaig started covering it in tape. Both he and George Lucas liked the result. Described as a kind of Rorschach pattern, the last drawing has McCaig's own face with the skin removed and some Rorschach experimentation, dropping ink into a paper, folding it in half, then opening. Maul's facial tattoos took inspiration from indigenous peoples of Brazil, and the character is described as a thing of nightmares when his art design is finished. Originally Maul's head had feathers based on prayer totems, but the creature effects crew led by Nick Duttman interpreted those feathers as horns, modifying his feathers into those common in popular depictions of the devil. Maul's outfit was also modified from a tight bodysuit with a muscle pattern to the Sith robe based on samurai pleats. Because the lightsaber battles has many exercises like jumping, spinning, running and rolling, another concept had Maul a masked figure, something that could be similar to Darth Vader, while senatorial characters would sport painted and tattooed faces. It was later decided to apply the painted and tattooed faces to Maul rather than the senator. I think he's fantastic. Lucas decided to bring back Darth Maul for the Clone Wars. There's questions on how he survived after he got cut in half by Obi-Wan, but Lucas is like, I don't know, go figure. Yoda is voiced by Frank Oz, who's the Jedi Master, the head of the Jedi Council, and he's centuries old. He was very reluctant to allow Anakin to be trained. In the original version, he was a puppet based on Stuart Freeborn's original design done by Nick Duttman. The character was fitted around Oz's schedule as he was finishing his work on In and Out. A CGI Yoda is in two distant shots. Warwick Davis played him in the scene where Obi-Wan becomes a Jedi Knight. George Lucas wanted to use a full-time digital Yoda, but the attempts did not work well enough at the time. So when 2011 Blu-ray release of the movie came along, the CGI Yoda got replaced. I really like Yoda, I thought he's pretty cool. Samuel L. Jackson plays Mace Windu, a Jedi Master who's the high-ranking member of the Jedi Council. I think he's fantastic. He's pretty badass. I also like the fact that he uses purple lightsaber. That's because Samuel L. Jackson requested it to George Lucas to make the character easily distinguishable in the large battle scenes, which is a great idea. Many early incarnations of the character who would become Mace Windu were developed in Lucas' original Star Wars script as a narrator, Princess Leia's brother and Luke Skywalker's friend. However, the process of redrafting and copy editing his character was removed from the original trilogy, but was reintroduced in 1994 when Lucas began the prequel trilogy. Pernilla August plays Shmi Skywalker, Anakin's mum, who's concerned for her son's future and allows him to leave with the Jedi. Apparently Pernilla was chosen after auditioning with Liam Neeson. She was worried of being rejected because of her accent, and I think she did a great job, especially her chemistry with Jake Lloyd. Like I said, Oliver Ford Davis plays Sio Bibble, the Naboo governor, and I think he's great as well. Hugh Quashire plays Captain Quaritch Panaka, Amidala's chief of security at the Thebe Palace. I really like the character and the actor's performance. It's a shame that he only appeared in The Phantom Menace. He thought the way he conceived of the role is very tough. Obviously no one out-toughed the Jedi, but Captain Panaka was going to give them a runaway for their money, he said. Terence Stamp plays Finis Balaram, the Galactic Republic's Supreme Chancellor, and I think Stamp is great. Every time I watch that scene, I'm like, General Zod in Star Wars.
Kneel before Zod!
Keira Knightley plays Sabe, a decoy of Queen Amidala throughout this movie. She's also voiced up by Natalie Portman, which I think they're great. Keira was chosen due to her close resemblance to Portman. A lot of people, including their mothers, had trouble telling them apart during the filming of the movie. Brian Blessed plays Bosnas, a Gungan tribe leader, and I thought he was fantastic, especially during the conversation.
We saw being friends.
And apparently during the conversation, George Lucas said that the actor's energy was needed for the movie and that he himself thought of casting Blessed as one of the Jedi, but he was much too powerful for the part. When he played Bosnas, Blessed recalls that his performance met with approval from Lucas. Andy Secombe voiced Watto, a junk dealer on Tatooine who owns Shmi Skywalker as well as her son, Anakin Skywalker, as slaves. Watto's design was an amalgam of rejected ideas. His expressions were based on video footage of Secombe's voice acting, Rob Coleman's photographs of animation supervisor imitating the character, and Steve Alpin modular saying Watto's lines to a mirror, and I think he gives off great performance.
Credits will do fine.
No, they won't! What, do you think you're some kind of Jedi waving your hand around like that?
Lewis MacLeod voiced Sebulba, a not a nice pod racer, and Anakin's main nemesis. Sebulba's design was described as a spider crossed with an orangutan crossed with a sloth by Lucas, with a camel-like face and clothing inspired by medieval armour, and I think he gives off great performance too, playing a character you love to hate. Alan Rusko plays Plo Koon, is a Keldor that's force sensitive and a Jedi Master, and I thought he's cool. During the plans, Plo Koon was known as Plum Koon, named after Nick Dudman's son's nickname for the information of without the mask, an image of Plo Koon without his goggles, exposing his closed eyes in an old Star Wars databank. However, in question, as the image appears in the behind the scenes section as a pre-production concept module and does not necessarily reflect the reality of the character. Matthew Wood plays Bib Fortuna, who's a chief aide to Jabba the Hutt, and I thought the character looked grim. Sean Harrison, the makeup artist, worked on the character as well as the several other creatures and aliens in The Phantom Menace, including Jar Jar Binks. Jabba the Hutt is a crime lord, and I thought he looked pretty gross, voiced by John Judgman. Although the end credits, jokingly, the character is credited as himself, which is pretty amusing. Silas Carson played Newt Gunray, the Viceroy of the Trade Federation who led Naboo's invasion and tries to force Queen Amidala to sign a treaty to legitimize their job of the planet. After Lucas and McCallum listened to the various language, decides how the Nemoidians would speak Newt Gunray's Thai accent was chosen. Silas Carson also plays Lot Dodd, a Trade Federation senator, and Ki-Adi-Mundi, a powerful Jedi Master who's wise. Jeremiah St. John Blake plays Rune Oko, Gunray's chief lieutenant and settle officer in the Trade Federation, with James Taylor voicing him. Hopper Urancis, a Jedi Master. Orn Frey, Ta Twi'lek's senator, and Mas Amidala, a Shagrian politician and vice chair of the Galactic Senate. Warwick Davis plays Weasel, aka Podrace Spectator. He reprised the role in Solo, a Star Wars story, which is cool. He also played a Rhodian slave in Tatooine. George Lucas wanted Warwick to play a character without wearing the mask, and there he is. The scene was filmed one day at Leavesden Studios in England. There's a lot of things in this movie to like. The atmosphere where we see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I don't sense anything.
The lightsaber duel has got some style in there. The scene where Jar Jar leads Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon to the Gungan city is phenomenal. The effects on the city, and especially John Williams' music score. He decided to use electronic instruments such as synthesizers. The big fish looks pretty scary.
There's always a bigger fish.
Plus, Jar Jar often gets picked on in the movie, which I think people would know he's going to be hated. There's a lot of great stuff in the pod race. I like the idea of it. Plus, I do think they should do a Star Wars movie focusing on the pod race.
Wait, I'm tired.
Anakin, drop!
Luckily, Qui-Gon was pretty quick to warn Anakin.
Anakin, drop!
I liked Anakin's chemistry with Padme in that scene.
I made this for you. So you'd remember me. I carved it out of a poor snippet. It'll bring you good fortune.
It's beautiful. But I don't need this to remember you by.
There's some pretty good graphics with the sunset where Jedi sits around. I also like the story arc with Darth Sidious where none of the Jedi or Senator knew who Palpatine is.
The Senate is full of greedy, squabbling delegates. The Chancellor should never have brought them into this. Kill them immediately.
Yes, my lord.
The idea of 4 battle scenes at the same time isn't a bad idea. To those who saying talking scenes are boring, well, lucky for them, 4 battle scenes that they will find to kill off the time. We got a pretty cool scene where Jar Jar and Gungan fights battle droids. Jar Jar does a pretty cool stunt. There's Anakin flying into space with R2 to blow the droid ship up. Padme and Panaka facing battle droids and Viceroy. My favourite scene in the movie has got to be the Darth Maul fight scene, the entrance. Camera closing up. Sorry. Honestly, this battle scene is a blast to watch. Also the Duel of the Fates by John Williams. We get an emotional scene where Qui-Gon dies. His funeral is pretty effective. I like the look of Plasma Ball that Boss Nass carried. And I think there's lots of great stuff in there. I think you have missed out on the good stuff here. As the movie got released, it accompanied by a considerable amount of attention. The Wall Street Journal said so many workers announced plans to view the premiere that many companies closed on the opening day. Outside of the cinemas was packed over a month before ticket sales started. Re-theatre lines appeared when it was announced that cinemas were not allowed to sell tickets in advance until 2 weeks into the release due to the concerns of that family theatre goers would be either unable to receive tickets or would be forced to pay higher prices for them. Instead, tickets were to be sold on a first-come, first-served basis, although after meetings with the National Association of Theatre Owners, Lucasfilm agreed to allow advanced ticket sales on 12th of May 1999, provided there was a limit of 12 tickets per customer. What happened is some advanced tickets were sold by scalpers at prices as high as US $100 a piece, which a distribution chief called horrible and said was exactly what they wanted to avoid. Daily Verity said Lucasfilm instructed that the theatre owners that the film could only play in the cinema's largest auditorium for the first 8 to 12 weeks. No honor passes were allowed for the first 8 weeks, and they were obligated to send their payments to distributor 20th Century Fox within 7 days. There's been worries of the film being finished on time. However, 2 weeks before its theatrical release, Lucasfilm moved the release date from May 21st to 19th, 1999. to give a head start to the fans by allowing them to view it during a week and allowing families to view it during the weekends. Weird Al Yankovic did a parody song and music video. The saga begins a month after the release of The Phantom Menace, explaining Obi-Wan's point of view to the tune of American Pie.
Here Anakin guy, maybe Vader someday later, now he's just a small fry.
Which got included in 2011 Star Wars Blu-ray bonus feature. Natalie Portman returned as Queen Amidala. In a 2018 Saturday Night Live comedy rap video to defend the prequels, Darth Maul's dual style served as the inspiration for the 2003 viral video Star Wars Kid. It was announced on 28th of September 2010, my 12th birthday, that episode 1 to 6 would be stereo converted to 3D. They would re-release in the films in order, starting with The Phantom Menace on 10th of February 2012. But after Lucasfilm was bought by the Walt Disney Company, the 3D re-releases on the rest of the films were cancelled to focus on Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So, that's The Phantom Menace. There's a lot of great things in there, like I said, lot to love. Coming next is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. 10 years after the events of The Phantom Menace, while Obi-Wan investigates an attempted assassination on the Senator and found a secret clone army, Anakin shares his romance with Padme. So after the previous movie received mixed reviews, George Lucas was reluctant to return to the writing desk, but then he completed his rough script for Episode 2 in March 2000. Just 3 months before the start of the principal photography, he continued with the script, producing a proper first and second draft for help with the third draft, which would later become the shooting script. A writer of several episodes of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, Jonathan Hales, got brought in to do that for him, but he had limited experience writing theatrical films. The final script was completed just 1 week before the start of the principal photography during the writing of The Empire Strikes Back. Lucas originally decided that Lando Calrissian was a clone and came from a planet of clones, which started the Clone Wars mentioned by Obi-Wan in A New Hope. He later came up with an alternate concept of an army of clone troopers from a remote planet, which were used by Republic as an army in the war that followed. Apparently the working title was Jar Jar's Great Adventure, a sarcastic reference to the negative responses from the fans to the character, which was actually a joke. Nice. Naboo Palace scene was shot in Plaza de España in Seville in Spain. They also shot this movie in London, China, Vancouver, San Diego and Italy, Villa del Balbieleno on Lake Como, and in place where Royal Palace of Caserta used to be. Those cast from the previous movie reprised a role. Anakin Skywalker in this movie is played by Hayden Christensen, who became a Padawan apprentice, and I think his acting is spot on where he shows off his rage and emotion. The fact that Anakin mentions he doesn't sleep well anymore, which explains why he sounds half asleep.
You look tired. I don't sleep well anymore. Because of your mother?
And I think he does have a great moment with Padme.
You're making fun of me.
No, I'd be much too frightened to tease a senator.
We call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
I honestly don't think Hayden is a bad actor, and to those who think he is a bad actor, well, his acting got praised in Shattered Glass and Life as a House. Before he was casted, Lucas auditioned few actors, and the ones who were considered for the role are Jonathan Brandis, Devon Sawa, Topher Grace, Joshua Jackson, Ryan Phillippe, Colin Hanks, Paul Walker, Leonardo DiCaprio and Heath Ledger. So Natalie Portman said in the Time magazine that Christensen gave a great reading. He could stimulously be scary and really young. Christopher Lee plays Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus, who was a Jedi Master and a mentor to Qui-Gon Jinn and now became a Sith. And I think he's phenomenal. Lee was an accomplished sword fighter, but Kyle Rowland, the stunt actor, had to do the work due to Lee's age. Rowling's face is replaced with Lee's face. Lee reprised the role in the Star Wars The Clone Wars animated movie. Also, his niece plays Dr. Harta Colonia in The Force Awakens, which is cool. Jimmy Smits plays Bail Organa, a senator from Alderaan, who eventually adopted Princess Leia, and I think he's great too. Temuera Morrison plays Jango Fett, a bounty hunter who gives out his DNA for the use of the cloning facilities on Kamino to create a clone army. I really love that character and I think he's badass. He's referenced to Django, which is cool. In the early scripts, Jango Fett was called Jamie. The outfit is based on Boba Fett from the original trilogy that was designed by Joe Johnston, as they wore sleek armoured suits that conceal scarred face. Originally, Jango's suit was to be white to match the concept art for Boba Fett, but got changed to silver and blue in contrast to Boba's green, red and orange. Jango also uniquely has Thaishin and spat armour, as well as comprehensive lack of accessories and trophies. George Lucas decided that Jango would wear Mandalorian armour, but would not be from their planet. Temuera couldn't see anything while wearing the helmet because of the fog from his breath, making it difficult to perform. Daniel Logan plays young Boba Fett, Jango's clone, an adopted son, and I think his acting is spot on, playing a kid who's pretty menacing. Apparently he hasn't seen any Star Wars films before he got the part, so he watched them by George Lucas' request. He had to rely his imagination for the blue screen. Him and Jeremy Bulloch, the original Boba Fett physical actor, had an interest in reprising the role in Underworld TV series that sadly didn't happen. George Egerton and Bonnie Pices plays young Owen and Beru Lars, a couple that lives in Tatooine. Owen became Anakin's stepbrother, and they both became Luke's uncle and aunt who brought them up. And I think they did a great job playing the younger versions of Phil Brown and Sheila Fraser. Jack Thompson plays Clee Glass, who's married to Shmi Skywalker and became Anakin's stepfather. And I think he's great too. Leanna Walsman plays Zam Wesell, Jango's partner, who's also a shape-shifting, Claudite bounty hunter who got sent to kill Padme. And I thought she's pretty badass. The actress was discovered by Robin Gurland, the casting director, while she was performing with Rose Byrne, who played Dormy. In the play Lad Dispute for the Sydney Theatre Company, Jay Lager Aya plays Gregor Typho, who's a Padme's new captain. I thought he was pretty good. He was originally to be killed off by Droideka, but the idea got ditched. The actor quite liked the character because he thought the character is this guardian that has Padme's ear and her counsel, and he can say things and decree things that not too many people can get away with. As far as her security is involved, once you get the costume on, it's a regal feeling because the costume is so restrictive, you're forced to pull yourself up and forced to hold yourself with the shoulders back. Rose Byrne plays Domi, Padme's handmaiden, and Alethea McGrath plays Jocasta Nu, the Jedi Temple librarian. They're great as well. Anthony Phelan and Rena Owen plays Lama Siu and Tom Wee. They're both Kaminoans. Lama is a Prime Minister of Kamino. They do look pretty cool and futuristic, and the voice actors are great as those characters. Ronald Falk plays Dexter Jetster, a basilisk who owns a diner on Coruscant called Dexter's Diner, and a good friend to Obi-Wan. I really like that character, he's really friendly.
Hey, oh, buddy!
Apparently Ahmed Best and Anthony Daniels did a cameo as Ahmed Beg, and Daniel Faitoni, which is cool. Also, NSYNC was asked by George Lucas to film a small background cameo to satisfy his daughters. They were subsequently cut out of the film. However, they are briefly seen during the crowd shot from the above. George Lucas's son, Jet Lucas, plays Zet Jukasa, a Jedi Padawan, in a deleted scene in Episode 2, but he reappears in Episode 3. There's great things in this movie, such as chasing Zam Wesell. Jango Fett's battle. And funny moments.
You want to buy some death sticks?
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
I don't want to sell you death sticks.
You want to go home and rethink your life.
I want to go home and rethink my life.
So iconic. You gotta love the explosion effects by Skywalker's sound. The fact that Watto says little Annie.
Annie? Little Annie?
And that he was an orphanage sounds familiar.
It's the hard knock life for us.
While he falls in love with Padme.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating.
Obi-Wan gets captured.
I do hope nothing's happened to him.
Even him and Padme gets captured as well.
I retransmitted it just as you had requested, Master. Then we decided to come and rescue you. Good job.
There's awesome battle scenes. Where a lot of Jedi fights with battle droids, man-eating creatures, also Jango Fett. And the bit where Dooku has a meeting, we get a cool tuning sound.
The Techno-Union Army is at your disposal, Count.
That is quite a tune. To those who say that Jar Jar doesn't do anything for the plot, well, he gave Palpatine the power.
Immediately, emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor.
We also get an emotional scene where Anakin lost his mum.
I love.
As he kills Tusken Raiders, it gives me goosebumps. There's great lightsaber duel. Anakin gets amputated, same as Luke. Like father, like son. Yoda was pretty badass.
Even you.
There's great setup for the Clone Wars.
Begun. The Clone War has.
John Williams' score, as always, phenomenal, especially the Clone Trooper Awakens. There's some great sound designs. And thanks to this movie, it gave us some great stuff like Star Wars Bounty Hunter game and Star Wars Clone Wars cartoons. I'm grateful that this movie exists. Next movie coming up is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. During the Clone Wars, after the rescue of Palpatine while Obi-Wan fought General Grievous and has a suspicion on Palpatine, Anakin acts as a double agent between the Jedi Council and Palpatine and ended up turning himself to the dark side. George Lucas began working Episode 3 before Attack of the Clones got released. There was ideas and concept art of that film would open with a montage of 7 battles on 7 planets. Michael Gaminsiski surmises that Lucas found flaws with Anakin's fall to the dark side and radically reorganized the plot in the secret history of Star Wars instead of starting the film with a montage of Clone War battles. Lucas decided to focus on Anakin. With him killing Count Dooku, it signals his turn to the dark side. There was many speculations online from the fans when it comes to the titles. There was rumours that it would be The Rise of the Empire, Birth of the Empire, and also The Creeping Fear, which was used officially for April Fool's Day in 2004. Eventually the title is Revenge of the Sith, a reference to Episode 6 title, originally Revenge of the Jedi, but obviously got changed to Return of the Jedi. As Lucas says, Jedi don't seek revenge. He had originally planned to include even more ties to the original trilogy and wrote early drafts of the script in which a 10-year-old Han Solo appeared in Kashyyyk, but the character wasn't casted nor he appeared. Lucas also wrote a scene in which Palpatine reveals to Anakin that he created him from midichlorians, and is thus his father, a clear parallel to Vader's revelation to Luke in Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back. But Lucas ditched the idea. He also planned a scene where Yoda and Ghost of Qui-Gon have a conversation with Liam Neeson reprise the role, but the scene was never filmed and Neeson was never recorded, but it was included in the novel. So George Lucas made some changes on Anakin after principal photography was finished in 2003. He rewrote his turn to the dark side. In the previous versions, Anakin had several reasons for turning to the dark side, one of which was his sincere belief that the Jedi are plotting to take over the Republic. However, this is still intact in the finished film. By revising and refilming many scenes, Lucas empathized Anakin's desire to save Padme's life. The art department took inspiration from Star Wars The Holiday Special to design Kashyyyk. For many months, Lucas would approve hundreds of designs that would eventually appear in the film. He then rewrites entire scenes and action sequence to correspond to certain designs he had chosen. Steven Spielberg was brought in as a guest director to make suggestions to the art designers, follow Mustafa Jewel, and oversee the pre-visualization, unused version of the Utaba chase scene. Those cast from the previous movie reprised the role. The fact that Obi-Wan says hello there in this movie has now become a thing.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Which is a good line. Love it.
Hello there.
Not just Ewan McGregor, but Alec Guinness says it too.
Hello there.
Brilliant. Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor practiced their lightsaber duel long before their shoot. They trained extensively with stunt coordinator Nick Gillard to memorize and perform their duel together. They both did fight scenes without stunt double. Hayden Christensen got to play Darth Vader in the suit after he requested it, and James Earl Jones returns as the voice of Vader, which is awesome. This movie also explains Palpatine becoming Darth Sidious.
Come, my apprentice. Learn to use the dark side of the Force.
Which looks pretty grim. Matthew Wood, who's a sound engineer, plays General Grievous, the cyborg commander of the Separatists' droid army, and I think he's pretty badass. A villain with a serious case of tested positive for COVID. They explained it before this movie even came out, as Grievous' debut is the Clone Wars cartoon, which took a lot of Jedi to take him down, and Mace Windu uses his force on Grievous to crush his chest plates, injuring his lungs, which makes him constantly cough. The character swinging 4 lightsabers looks pretty lethal, and you don't want to mess with that guy. Originally, Gary Oldman was to voice the character, but he was unavailable. As Lucas gives instructions on designing him, Warren Few, concept artist, made a sketch of taking inspiration from the top view of a spray battle for the face. Sketch was made into a 1-foot-tall maquette sculpture, which was then refined into a realistic computer-generated module by ILM. There's comparisons between Grievous and Jacob Epstein's sculpture Rock Drill. Peter Mayhew plays Chewbacca, aka Chewie, voiced by Ben Burt, who's a Wookiee and best friend to Han Solo. I really love Chewie, he's a likeable Wookiee. Temuera Morrison in this movie plays Commander Cody, a martial commander of clone troopers. He also played the rest of clone troopers, highly trained soldiers in the Grand Army of Republic designed to be better than battle droids. They eventually become stormtroopers, and I think they're pretty cool. Bruce Spence plays Tyen Medin, a Utapau administrator, he's great too. Jeremy Bulloch plays Captain Colton, the rebel blockade runner, Tantive 4 pilot, he's great too. Captain Ramus Antilles in this movie is played by Rohan Nicol, who's in charge of runner Tantive 4 and eventually killed in action during the secret mission to Tatooine as he got strangled to death by Darth Vader. And it's great to have him in the movie. Genevieve O'Reilly plays Mon Mothma Senator from Chandrila. Her speaking parts got cut sadly, and I think she nailed the role as she does look a lot like Caroline Blackiston as the character in Return of the Jedi. Welhoff Tarkin, a Grand Moff of the Empire in this movie, is played by Wayne Pygram. And I think he's a great choice of casting as he looks like a younger Peter Cushing. Nick Gillard plays Sindralig, a Jedi Master. And funny enough, if you take the kicking K on Nick Gillard and spell it backwards, that his character's name like anagram, which is genius.
Very impressive.
The infant Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia Skywalker, Organa, are played by editor Roger Barton's son, Aidan Barton, which is cool. I'll get into those characters when we get to the original trilogy. George Lucas plays Baron Notluisky, Papanoida, the chairman of the moon Pantora during the Galactic Republic final years. George Lucas's daughter Amanda and Katie Lucas plays Tertaniel, a senator in the Galactic Senate, and Chi Ikwe, a Pantoran who's the daughter of Baron Notluisky. I love the opening with the drumming. And it begins with the battle in space above Coruscant. The buzz droids look pretty dangerous.
R4, be careful! You have
The graphics do look like the 2008 Clone Wars animated series, which is cool. Count Dooku's fight in this looks awesome.
I've been looking forward to this.
My powers have doubled since the last time we met, Count.
Him getting killed looks pretty sick. Palpatine's "do it" is pretty iconic.
Do it.
It looks pretty cool with the wrecked ship flying down to the planet.
Landing strip straight ahead. We're coming in too hot.
Anakin's dream of Padme dying of childbirth looks pretty grim. There's a fascinating scene with the legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise.
Some of us think he could be Supreme Leader Snoke as of time of recording.
It's ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
The fight with Grievous is absolute blast. Luckily for Obi-Wan, old-fashioned blaster killed him.
So uncivilized.
Use my knowledge, I beg you. You're the Sith Lord.
Lord of the cleaning products. I love the fact that Mace has no fear.
In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you're under arrest. Mother.
He's pretty serious and badass. The lightning on Palpy's face is pretty effective. It's pretty sad that Mace Windu has died. Although Luke got electrocuted longer than Mace, and there's ships flying around, and I don't see why Mace can't catch one, so it's possible that he's still alive somewhere. They really should do his spin-off.
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
I love the scene where Anakin with his hood up marching up to Jedi Temple with the clone troopers behind him. Especially the music. This is where he becomes Darth Vader. The Execute Order 66 scene is absolutely heartbreaking, where all the Jedi are killed.
Execute Order 66.
One of the most emotional scenes ever in the Star Wars universe. John Williams' music made it so powerful, plus Yoda's reaction as more than likely all of the Jedi he knows are killed, not to mention Anakin killing kids.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
The fact that Obi-Wan can't watch Anakin killing people anymore must have been too upsetting for him to watch.
I can't watch anymore.
And it's really sad to see Anakin strangling Padme to death.
You brought him here to kill me!
No!
Let her go!
The best scene in this movie is the lightsaber duel, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. And Yoda versus Emperor Palpatine. It's a blast to watch. The music is brilliant. I love the fact that part of the music sounded a bit like the clash of lightsabers from The Empire Strikes Back.
And either of us. Faith in your new apprentice, misplaced maybe.
It is a great fitting. The effects on the lava is excellent. I found it amusing when Obi-Wan took the moral high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
He outsmarted Anakin. After he sliced off Anakin's left arm and both of his legs, we get a heartbreaking scene with this.
You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
My friends recalled that he cried watching that scene. Poor Obi-Wan, he lost everything. His master, the woman he loved, his best friend, but still didn't turn to the dark side. What a true Jedi Master. Anakin got burnt is pretty grim, but hey, we get a cool and sad scene where Padme's deaf.
There's good in him. I know.
The birth of Vader, Luke and Leia. And I think it's a great way to end the movie where Leia is in Alderaan with the Organa couple. And Luke in Tatooine with the last couple with the Binary Sunset soundtrack. There's a lot of deleted scenes such as Padme, Bail and Mon Mothma organising an alliance to stop Palpatine from taking more emergency powers, but this was to focus on Anakin's story. There's also Yoda arriving Dagobah for his exile. Rick McCallum was hoping that would be the final cut. Bai Ling shot her small scenes playing a senator. Shaak-Ti killed by General Grievous in front of Obi-Wan and Anakin was also cut. And there's also Obi-Wan and Anakin running through Grievous' ship, escaping droids through a fuel tunnel and arguing on what R2-D2 is saying. Apparently there was a leak from the movie to peer-to-peer file sharing networks. It may came from within industry rather than from someone who films the screen. 8 people were charged for copyright and distributing illegally. The illegal copy was passed among 7 people until reaching the 8th, who also pleaded guilty to upload it to an unnamed P2P network. Crazy. So yeah, I really like Revenge of the Sith. It is my favourite of the prequels. I honestly don't hate the prequels at all. I always have a blast doing a Star Wars marathon as well as Harry Potter, Spider-Man, etc. Maybe because I grew up with those films. So stay tuned for more videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video and may the Force be with you.